Test, test, test. Cheers, folks. Test, test. Getting a little bit of echo in here. I think that's probably my headphones are on in OBS, so I got to shut that off. I don't know why that just randomly turns it on. It must be AI. Plus, I hear a strange, like, reciprocating type of noise in the background, humming. That's so strange. I don't hear it in the actual room, but I only hear it in the headphones. I don't know if you guys are getting that. I hope not. Observations on reality. This is just a stream of consciousness, if you will. Just ideas and considerations, opinions, who we are, what we are, where we are, using words of babble to try to frame it up. It's pointless if you see it as pointless, but it's meaningful if you see relatable synchronicities as valuable. Just kind of depends where you're at, you know. It's not for everybody. I mean, some people don't even care to look at reality. Some people, you start talking about what you see, and that triggers the fuck out of them. It gets them incredibly upset. And you're just stating something you saw, as if you're just supposed to ignore things and not comment on them, because it might actually invoke some type of productive communication. And people have walls up around certain subjects, you know. If they have political ideologies or really strong dogmatic religious type of tendencies, that, you know, just to even get logic to be a consideration, you have to get past such a harsh, rigid exterior. So many issues, right? You'd have to earn that person's trust. You'd have to get past their baggage somehow enough for them to see what you're actually saying, see the sincerity and authenticity. And fundamentally, they literally just may not want that at any level. It's not even something they're interested in. And then you're just forcing a square in a peg hole. I mean, you can do that. It's just, is it a productive use of your time? It's kind of like the pearls before swine thing that the Bible talked about. And it's interesting because the Bible is supposed to be all about love and the Savior and Jesus. At least that's the way the Christians present it, right? But then you hear those verses like, don't cast your pearls before swine. And I guess it's just a statement, but if you really observe it for what it is and look at, I mean, if this is God's word, supposedly, right, the inherent, infallible word of the Most High, and that's encapsulating the ideologies of God, even if another man said it, what we're recognizing is that this is a certifiable statement of the Most High, captured for humanity eternally so that we would understand God. Then God sees fit to call his creation swine, right? Like children, mothers, fathers, they're swine. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. I'm just saying, like, observe it for what it is. You have the capacity for God to look at you as swine. And you're not even worth a consideration or even hearing truth. You're a pig. You're a slothful, disgusting pig, and you don't deserve a kernel of wisdom or knowledge because you couldn't receive it even if it was given to you. So what's the fucking point? It's completely unproductive. God says, why waste your time? Don't bother. you'd be better to do just about anything. Just fuck off and waste your energy, go take a dip, take a swim, do something. But what is a relatable, quote, man now in society? Someone that you have a similar football team you guys cheer on, and you're like little girly boy cheerleaders from the sideline staring at boys in tight pants, remembering the glory days of when you didn't have that huge gut while you down a bag of potato chips and drink some beer for the evening. Watch it. This is relatable now. It's all worth it. We slave all week. We give our blood, sweat, and tears so we can watch gay propaganda on TV. And then you wonder why God calls you swine. Like, you're not worth it. You don't aspire to do better and be better or have anything relevant, that's deeply rooted in your spirituality. You want narcissistic, surface-oriented, vain type of investments for your consciousness because you're trying to build treasures in a place that you can't build a treasure. That's the one thing you can't do here. You can do a lot. You can experience. You can make all kinds of different decisions. You can have all kinds of different cause and effect. But you will never build anything sustainable in a physical sense. And yet that's basically what people try to do their whole life, is grab and hold on to and capture and corral and keep and own and build their identity around a bunch of shit that no matter what they do, it's going to be burned right in front of them, if not in a moment, over the course of a lifetime. And if that's the primary motivation, and that's truly the insanity that the mind has chose, it's all they're going to focus on. They can't receive anything else because all their prayers, all their wants, all their desires is entitlement. Give me more. I just need. Even though all their needs are met. This is why you can't feel sorry for a lot of the people around you, because you can objectively look at their life, not judgmentally, not in a condemning sense, but in a helpful, service-oriented type of process where they want to get in a victim mindset and tell you all about their problems. And then when you offer genuine solutions, their eyes glaze over like a deer in headlights, and they can't hear a fucking thing you say. Now, why is that? They can't help themselves? They don't want to step into any solutions that might actually embody empowerment and the ability to overcome the problem that they're contending with? No, it's so deeply rooted in their identity that if you try to pop that bubble or eliminate this pain, so-called pain from their life, they're going to turn into your enemy. They're going to fight you. They're going to lock horns with you. They're going to tell you why we couldn't do this and how... now you're in the crosshairs of what they consider the attacker or what they need to defend against, because you just told them simply, brother, it doesn't have to be this way. You don't have to do this anymore. You don't have to continue this pattern of defective, dysfunctional thinking that's ruining your life. You are empowered. You actually can change your circumstances at a fundamental level in a profound way that will unravel over the course of all your existence and experience here. And it will be purpose-oriented, it will be fulfilling, and you'll have a sense of authenticity in what you do and who you are. The reason you don't have that now is you don't stand for anything, and you're not actually stepping into anything in your life that matters, and you're wavering. You're not willing to face the consequences of staying committed to your own principles, to the discernment that God gives you. And so you're losing it perpetually over the course of a lifetime. You're losing your connection to God. Because you're measuring yourself by all the sparkly trinkets of what you see happening around you and what people value in their lives as success, because they haven't thought it out. It's rooted in stupidity, it's naivety, it's ignorance at its prime example. And yet people follow it like sheep led to the slaughter because they're not using their own discernment. And so the outcasted man, the one who's not idealized, the one who's not relatable, but has the actual thing that everybody's looking for, gets the Christed experience. That's what he gets when he comes here. We'll mock you, spit on you, stick you on a cross, treat you like shit. We'll treat you like shit when you live in a different way, have a different mindset, and get a different result, and offer that abundantly and freely to everyone around you. And some receive, but most don't. And you're the enemy because you just refuse to capitulate and agree with everyone that all their problems can't be affected and that this is just life and they just have to live in misery and have no sense of meaning. I'm not saying you're going to have an easy life. I'm not saying your problems are all solved. But if there's purpose and meaning behind what you're doing, you can overcome everything in this realm. That's the whole message of Jesus. That was the message, Christians, is you have hope, you have an ability. You're empowered by the Most High, and it's not through some other dude. It's a direct connection. That was the fucking concept that evades the Christian. Everything else matters, but the thing that Jesus told you that was the most powerful is that you're not lost or forsaken. You have everything you need with you now, not in some other space and time where you won't be overcome. No, you won't be overcome now if you receive the mindset of truth. It's available to you in this moment. But what is that mindset? Well, there was an example, right? This guy said it for you. He showed you how to walk in this confidence, in this security, in this knowingness, this faith, that all things work for good. There's nothing that he's encountering that doesn't serve a purposeful aspect to his experience that's going to refine him and make him more than, better than in his ability to be effective into the future, because it's a constant spiral line. He's chose the upward trajectory in his evolution. So he already knows what he's commanded because God gave him that power, and the identity that he's claimed, the beginning from the end is already played out. That's because I am was decided before space and time. And he's connected to all that. So he doesn't even need faith in that belief sense where it's unknown. It's literally the experience he has every day as he exercises his faith. The common man doesn't understand that because he doesn't live that way. And he's never stepped into the unknown where he just gave it all to God and said, my carnal mind can't solve this problem. I give this to the Most High in completion, and let's just see where it goes. I'll be a humble servant because obviously my feeble mind, or even capable mind in this particular circumstance, it's not the solution. And then you find the solution was in essentially letting go. That whole kind of platitude of letting God and letting go and letting God. Is that a purposeful life? To just trust God in everything that you do and everything that you experience and every way that you look at even tribulation and difficulty, is you take the steps to have gratitude and appreciation in the way that you can, even if it's soaking in pain. And you've learned to do that through experience. There's a wisdom there where you've had enough trials, you've had enough face kicks and things happen where you've been through this cycle and this process where you've felt the despair, you've felt the letdown, the betrayal, whatever it is that didn't go the way you expected, and you had to soak all that in. You had to feel that to its completion. But you also can look in hindsight how there's always this initial phase of maybe lack of faith or not understanding or not seeing the silver lining or how this is actually going to have a positive impact. But then if you've been through that, you always look back and in most cases, and not just in my testimony, but a lot of people I've heard say something similar where this is the character building experience. This was the most valuable part of their life because it was the fire that refined them. It forced them to be that caged animal that had to make a decision on what path they would take. They were in complacency and they needed something to rock their world, to wake them up. So oftentimes we're resisting the most valuable part of our self-development and growth. You know, we may be looking at it from a proactive sense. I'm reading books, I'm listening. But then when the Most High gives you the actual experience that's going to give you that greater perspective, which is going to require some discomfort, maybe dis-ease, cause and effect consequences for your actions, what you've chose to do over a lifetime. And it's the person that's feels terminally ill, maybe has even gotten a type of diagnosis from somebody with a degree that this is their exit out of here. And it's all being framed as the worst possible thing that could happen to them, like it's their downfall, it's failure, life is your victim. You know, all the different things that people who get sick like this have to go through that I've experienced. And if you were honest with yourself after getting through something like that and you look back, you can always say, man, that was character building. That was what I needed. Like it caused me to discipline. It is actually there as like a safety mechanism to make sure you don't get too complacent. So there's nothing that you will not be accountable to. There's nothing that you can't escape accountability now, later. It all does have an ultimate cause and effect, even if it's not just the temperament of your own consciousness and how you get to sleep at night. The demons or the lack of demons that you get to carry with you along your journey. So even if you have to face that pain or tribulation, you know, can you do it with the stillness and the peace and the love and the communion of having that great spirit, or are you carrying all that baggage that you're not willing to let go because that fragile identity that you're holding up of all the treasures you built here is not going to let you see something greater in yourself. You keep giving meaning to things that are not fulfilling. They're empty goals. It's a bunch of stuff they taught you, and they told you if you achieved it, that would be the source of your happiness. People perpetually find out it's not true, but we're creatures of habit. We just get stuck in that cycle. And breaking out of it is going to require the most significant amount of courage and conviction and willingness to face mystery and unknown that most people have ever experienced, because you're taught to be a slave, not to be in a faith mindset that everything works for a greater purpose if you'll just submit to it. No, you're taught you got to go make something of yourself. You got to strive, toil, blood, sweat, and tears, turn yourself into something. Get your accreditations, get your trophies, your degrees. Go convince everybody else that you matter, because you never knew who you were anyway. So you just spend your whole life in this distractive process. Not that there's not meaning in that. It just means that it doesn't matter how many people might be around you and offer you an alternative. If there's not a receptive perspective there, it's a futile process, and you're casting pearls before swine. It's time to walk away. Take your power back. There's a season for these relationships. You don't need to invest in someone beyond the point of where they show you that your investment is not going to create a return. It's not going to bear fruit. They're a succubus. They're just going to keep taking and taking and taking and taking and taking. And you could take all that. Now you're not a good steward. You're what the Christed being told you as the one who just wastes the investment. You waste the inheritance of that co-creative spirit. When in fact, you would have been better to invest it in your own spiritual growth, your loving yourself. Why put it into people that they don't want to do better? They don't want to make a better choice. They just want to siphon off you, and they've showed you that time and time and time again. You know? Because we think we're doing like some kind of service to a family member, or, you know, some dysfunctional friend that continues to not treat you the way you treat them, and you've already set the boundary. They can't handle their money straight, but they want to call you a friend. Yet they'll make you go without because their life's difficult, and they don't even have the communication ability to explain to you why they're doing what they're doing. You've already told them up front, honor and integrity actually matters to me, bud. Like, I'm going to treat you better than I expect you to treat me, but I have a fucking standard. You know, you're not going to be manipulating or not honor deals. We're not going to have this type of thing where I always got to tit for tat and chase you around to do what you said. And if you even have to say that, I would say the friendship never started to begin with. It's a bad deal, bad business partnership, whatever. Exit stage left. But there are those great partnerships, right, where someone wants to flex on you, or they want to show you a side of them that is not very pretty, and that they're willing to take more than their fair share, or that they're willing to make you go out and be without while you've done the work. And they'll treat you like you're a bank that they can just take deposits on and be indebted to and not even pay an interest. It's just because they have found other people that will tolerate that shit. And so now they create relationships predicated on that because they have a need and they live a certain way. And all of a sudden, they've built a whole life around that. That's the type of life, you know, and they expect all their relationships to capitulate to that. And it's disgusting. I have no need for people like that in my life. I'm the entire opposite type of friend in that regard. I'm going to cut that person off out of love for themselves, for me. I don't care what they offer valuable in the relationship otherwise. I may have a certain level of tolerance, like if you're, you know, an amazing inspirational being on a multitude of levels beyond that, which I have experienced that, but there was like a fundamental integrity error. And it's like, I'll explain it. Maybe I'll explain it to you 2 times instead of once. That's about it. I'll give you one more time, like, brother, man, this is not the way to do things. And I already explained this. Should not have to say this again. Out of love, I'm giving it, one more shot across the bow so that we can be understood. For your own good. You don't want these relationships that you're creating. You're creating your own misery. I'm giving you an opportunity to have something more authentic. Or you want to fake that there's some kind of common decency and respect while you're insultingly treating someone like shit and no one's calling you out on it? No, I'd rather lose the experience altogether. I'd rather walk alone. And I think all too often, people are not willing to set those boundaries to have their own healthy experience in life where the people in my life, the relationships I have are going to be built on integrity, trust. There's going to be common decency and respect, and that's just what I attract. And regardless of whether someone else wants to step into that, if you're the only one who can step into that around you, you would rather walk alone. Fortunately, I don't see it that way. There's plenty of people that are holding themselves to a higher standard. And I think as soon as you put that beacon out in your own life, you just start attracting those type of people in. I mean, to be completely honest about it, I'd say they're few and far between, but you do attract them in. And you start listening, and it's just opportunities that I think would not have been there otherwise had you had a more self-lack perspective, or you were not seeing that in the world, that's not just happening in you. This is happening in your brothers and sisters. There are genuine, beautiful people out here who have done the work. They've gone through these processes. They are coming from a place of love, but not a cheesy Hollywood love where it's rooted in capitulating to nonsense, but it's a discerning, disciplined love that has standards for everyone. It's like, this is not something, the whole idea of a boundary is not, to me, something that's really inherent to one person, or that it's something that is unique to a certain relationship, really. I know that therapy and psychologists and all this would disagree, but no, these are universal concepts. It really shouldn't have to be stated. This should be able to be discerned at the heart level. The only reason these things have to be said is because things that are obvious are not being observed and adhered to. You don't go around deceiving your brother, digging into their pockets when they're not looking, treating them like trash, and expect them to set the standard and treat you well. At minimum, the best they could offer you is to just cut you off completely. It's the nicest way to deal with someone like that, is just completely ghost them, let them figure it out. Because if you argue with them, now it's just the manipulation process starts. And you can watch it. If you understand the psychology, they're just there to do more of what they were doing. Just because you brought it to their attention, it's not like they're wanting to change their whole identity and their whole life and the way they have based all their relationships at this point. So typically that relationship's going to end 90+% of the time. There's not a path forward. You're going to burn a bridge, or, at least draw a line. the weather has been so odd. In Colorado, it's very hot, like it is in a lot of places. We are getting some moisture, so it's kind of a humid hot. But there's this eerie, ominous look to the clouds with all the fires that have come in from Utah and these different places. And it reminds me of 9-10 years ago or whatever when we had the real big fires coming through here. Kind of you get that Armageddon look in the sky where it doesn't look good. Looks kind of creepy. And of course it does affect you at a physical level, the respiratory, and if you're someone that likes to get out and run and be in nature. Now it's like, well, shit. The thing that I like to do that's the most balancing and energizing, I got to go breathe a bunch of particulates from God knows what. I mean, who knows what's burned in all these fires, plastics and buildings, and it's just a bunch of toxicity. And we're almost to a society now where I can feel this coming, that if you were to have a campfire, because that's where this all feels like it's going next, right? I mean, if you have a wood stove, because they've been trying to do that for so long, and now they've got, you can always see them put the building blocks in place, the infrastructure, to accomplish these agendas to where it's very difficult for people to push back. And you could say that's a cop-out, but I can give you endless examples. I mean, look at the tricknology, how that was perpetrated upon the people. You're telling me if you're in an Americanized society and you were brought up in the last couple generations here where you were exposed to all this, that free will and the discernment to be able to say I'm not going to engage because I see the underbelly of the beast, I see the cause and effect. There's not many people that were that early adopter or on that level. I'm not even saying that would be fully a wise choice either. Like, we came here to experience. The technology, it is a demon beast, communist, corrupt, surveillance. I mean, it's awful. That's just one perspective, though, right? I mean, there really is like you could sit here all day and talk about the benefits and the way that technology is used in a positive sense. This has always been our challenge as humans, because what is good, right, and true? And one man will say there is no good and evil. I don't even need to subscribe to these absurd notions. The other is convinced, but in a way that you could never align with, because it's based off of what you see as his ignorance. You know, he's looking at the color of someone's skin. He's looking at their culture. He's not looking at conduct and their principles, their character, what they're committed to, their disciplines. He's not looking at their actions over the course of time that show and prove who that man is and where his true allegiance lies. Whether you like him or not, whether you care for his art, care for what his mannerisms, his style of presentation, even the result. You may pity the fool. Like, look at his pathetic life. God, he could have done so much more. Because the metric for you was sparkly trinkets. And you somehow thought that was going to, this false ego confidence in a bunch of shit that you can intellectually definitively say will just burn in the fire of this illusion that you've made for yourself. It's not. It will sustain in the most indefinite way. It's all going to spontaneously combust on you in a moment. Or if not, over the course of years through pain and agony as you exit this realm. And then we're still going to play this game that could be the value. That can't be the purpose. So at some level, any man that's achieved that does not start contemplating the more spiritually significant type of profound concepts of their own divinity, then you know they're ultimately corrupted. They're a complete fool. If they have the time to contemplate and all they can consider is how they could garner more of what doesn't actually fulfill what they were told it would fulfill, which was the peace and happiness and joy that they wanted to find in their heart, and then simultaneously give into that idea that just endless indulgence, endless stimulation and that's the whole concept of this society right now. It's been that way for ages. While they turned up the heat, devalued your dollar, gave you sold you this Hollywood type of lifestyle of lies through the social not working now. And people, the youth get indoctrinated by that all day long. So they're seeing these graven images, these idols of what they're supposed to look up to as a relevant man, a relevant woman, or a valuable, and the likes and the views and the subscribers, this is supposed to all be the metrics to define the value. But it's all being determined by what? Well, it outwardly exposes itself as having an agenda and being corporate and being non-liable and being ran by a bunch of scumbags. Like, you know, the same people who were involved in the islands and all the shit that's been exposed as of recent, supposedly, that everybody knew was going on anyway, but now it hit the mainstream. They're the same ones that are running these companies that create this technology. And it would seem they have some weird relationship with demons or whatever. Otherworldly beings that have nefarious intentions for humanity. People will ask, well, what is the solution with our current circumstances? How do we do something at this point to change the trajectory for humanity? How do we right the wrongs and right the ship, so to speak? And intuitively to me, it would seem that that would be a family-oriented process. It would have to be at the communal level. Ultimate power ultimately corrupts. So when it gets consolidated on a macro level to that such a pinpoint of decision makers, it's just going to be bad, right? So you have to break up the way that power is structured, and that's always happened through violence, right? Historically. But now with technology, that's a whole nother variable. Does that process even work the same when you have something that's like a drug that's so enticing and influential and being integrated at such a development stage early on in children's lives, where they're all just being exposed to these devices and seeing a society where it's just completely normal to give yourself over to whatever that thing's doing. Then the new challenge, whether you like it or not, I mean, if that's what becomes the curriculum is an AI model because it's superior to any human teacher. It can develop, through case study, the human brain at a much more efficient, superior, quicker rate than an actual human teacher. So now the students that are trained by humans, they're just inferior in the sense that the AI understands the wiring of the human brain in a way to even on an individual level, it can cater its teaching style to meet the needs much better than a human. So you have a whole entire society of beings being developed through technology. And the ones created are screaming, oh, we got to have regulation. There's got to be some kind of oversight. And they're telling you how it's the demise of humanity. I mean, it's laughable. It's like a movie script. It's hilarious. If it was 20 years ago and you wrote that out as a script and created it as a movie, or 30, maybe 40 years ago or whatever, it would have been a great movie. Would have seemed entirely implausible, but would have been a great movie. Test. Is this coming in? Can y'all hear me? Is this live? Divine Spark said, ego etched God out. My ego got me here. It's the key to discernment. Intuition gave me my ego. That's how that works. Huh? That's how that unravels. That's the chicken or the egg dilemma. The intuition came first. Not all, but most people live and die in their ego. Most people live and die in their ego. Can they even do that, Rick? Can they actually live and die in their ego? In their ego. Is that really what's happening? Or is the ego just an aspect of self that can't live or die, really? Or is that untrue? That's just, another idea I'm spouting. I'm not saying, I don't think either are true. I don't. What the fuck is the ego? It's just an aspect of self. I mean, without the ego, you wouldn't even, there would be no consideration of self. So it is in fact an aspect of consciousness. It is in fact an aspect of the observer, the one that's looking. It's saying, yeah, but who's the one that's looking at the one that's looking? Or who, there's one that is looking, but then there's also one looking at the one that's looking. Which one's the ego? You have multiple personalities now. You didn't even know it. You didn't name them. You need to name them. That's the next thing in your journey. So you've now divided the Trinity out in yourself. I'm going to call one Jesus, one the Holy Spirit, and one just, let's get right to the point, God. The all that is. Tame my ego. It didn't kill. It's taught me. I don't need to react or give anything. I'm way back here. Let me go through the comments here quicker. My wisdom has led me to this understanding, says Rick. I can distinguish between right and wrong, between good and evil. I have both discernment and consciousness. Yeah, I hear that. And that's an accountable man, if that's the way you look at it, and you react to that, and you live by those standards that you see as significant from that discernment, the best you can, or, or even not the best you can, because you're in a process and you're acknowledging your shortcomings and where you're actually not stepping in faith into what you need to do. But you're also commanding the overcoming of that process, because you're not here to sit on the bench. You're going to do the work. Good job, Rick. Gratitude. Attitude is gratitude. My life is so simple and uncomplicated because I live righteously. Interesting. My life is simple and uncomplicated because somewhere along my path, it was revealed to me that I could claim and command what I was shaping and carving. And so I'm just grateful to the Most High that process was revealed to me, that I could just let go of certain concepts and certain ideas of what I had to do that were not actually being shown and proved to actually have any fulfilling nature to them. They were just concepts that were indoctrinated into me. So I had to shed that shit off. And I'm just thankful I went through that process, because that allowed me to create a simpler, within reason, but comparatively so, I could have a simpler life by being homeless, by being like Jesus. But that also comes with a lot of discomfort. So if you can have a simple, semi-comfortable life, probably be more ideal. All things work together. Divine Spark tries to avoid the circus. You're one of the animals in the circuit. No, I'm just kidding. It's not the summer of love. Someone tell the cot. He's going to be disappointed. Stay out of her, my people. Be in the world, but not of the world. How can you say that he will be disappointed and know for certain that, you don't even know for certain what his motivations are. Unless you're just saying I'm taking him on his word that he's genuine, or that there's not any unknown variables there, or factors, motivations, considerations. There's no way to really know, unless I guess you really have inspected what you expect there, and you know the guy on a close level or something. But, even then, people can be good at hiding shit, right? Here, give me a second. I'll be right back. I got to go grab something. Test, 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 test. Test, 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 test. Maybe that's a better level there. Hope that wasn't breaking up the whole time. I think I had that thing set pretty high. Folks do not like it when you do not take the shit. Parasitic relationships suck, says Rick. Michael Sean, cheers. Yo, what's up, OTW News? OTW says he loves drawing lines. You gonna make me an offer on my trusty steed or what? Oh, I don't know what's going on here. I'm confused. Okay, I'm just gonna go to the end here. See what the consensus is. Lego my ego, says the battle axe. Verily. Well, somebody said a statistic to me in one of these streams. Maybe it was Finding Gnosis or it was this other one. Bunch of gabby gossiping gals jibber jabbering away. And they gave me some statistic that 70% of Americans were Catholic. And I probably misheard how they were framing that because I thought that's crazy. But I went and looked it up, and it's only like 20%. However, what was amazing to me is 62% identify as Christian. So it is more than half of the people around you hold this label, and it's their sacred cow, right? And it's an identity. It's a group think. It's a way to cope. And 99% of those people, if you ask them to critically think about this indoctrination that they have, they can't do it. They're going to get upset. They're going to get angry, you know. And I have friends that are highly indoctrinated into that, and we have agreed to disagree to where, because the boundary they wanted to set with me was they could spout their bullshit and I couldn't ask a reasonable question. And when I did, it would make them really upset. And I was never the instigator. It was just always this, well, Jesus loves you kind of thing. And, I'm praying for you, buddy, and blah, blah, or whatever it is. Like, why? I didn't ask you to pray for me. I can handle all that. Jesus already told you don't need an intercessor. And if, you want to pray on my behalf, I think you might be using the PREY word by the way you're talking to me. I don't even trust your intentions to go to God on my behalf. I'll handle it. Thank you very much. I've heard enough. I think you're going to do more harm than good. Please reserve your prayers for someone else. And then they're like, no, I'm going to pray for you. They're going to lock horns. I'm going to pray for you. You can't stop me from praying for you. I can't. You're right, you fucking asshole. But you can't stop me from asking you a common sense question about your bullshit that you haven't even thought about, that you took on because your family told you it was how you should think, or you got desperate and were vulnerable and impressionable and went to someone who gave you a supposed solution, which was just another curse. It was just another hornet's nest, fucking web weaved into your consciousness that you're going to have to unravel, because they were going to give you condemnation and all these ideas of self-lack, and that while simultaneously reading a book that tells you there is no self-lack, but that you're ultimately sinned, you are both a sinner and a saint. It's like the book of mirrors and contradictions. As much as people want to actually say it's cohesive and that it's all something that on an esoteric, spiritual, allegorical, on every level, that's why it's the nature of God, because it has so much meaning. Well, it's also a house of mirrors and a bunch of contradictions. It's literally going to tell you you can't get into heaven unless you're a sinner that's saved by Jesus, but also identified as a saint, but also you have to be identified as a saint. There's obviously multiple authors who were not in some agreement. Paul didn't even agree with Jesus in a lot of cases, which is a whole nother discussion. I've told someone to not pray for me. Yeah. Right. You say you love me, and yet you're going to go do spiritual things on my behalf that I'm not asking you to do, and I don't want you to engage in. And even though you've told me you're doing this and I've asked you not to, you're going to continue to do it. And you want to call that love, or that's an example I should be considering. You're doing it right. That's good, right, and true. Well, you know better for me what I need, right? You know, I pity his poor soul. I'm going to help him out and go to baby Jesus, plastic Jesus, and make some type of agreement for him on his dumbass because he's too stupid to figure it out. So I'll do it. And that there is Catholic type of ideologies of that, right? Where we got to pray on their behalf because they're too stupid. So we got to pull them into this energy despite their own free will, even though God gave them their own co-creative concept of ego, as we talked about, which has this intuition and intention and discernment behind it. But then that goes back to this whole idea that, well, I'm not going to get my house in order because my job here is to go get everybody else's house in order. So everybody wants to fix the world, and they ask you, hey, what's the solution? How can we fix this fucking problem? Yeah, well, the solution is to fix yourself. That's your role, is to be the best version of yourself. If you were doing that, then you wouldn't be worried about fixing the bigger problem anyway, because the state of mind you would have is productive to the point where it's already focused and purpose-driven. It already knows what it's doing. It's already committed and done its part as a cog on the wheel, or a fractaled out perspective of the all that is. That's projecting all of this, either through some collective, again, fractaled out consciousness, if not even a one source. It's just an illusion of fractaled out. It's not even fractaled out. It never was. It's still just coming from one space. Because as much as people want to argue over it, it seems like there is a genuine knowledge of truth. There is a genuine concept of what is fair and respectable. And people like to slice and dice it and give you these different, well, these cultures think that it's okay to kill people because their God says so, and then these people think, well, sure, yeah. But has genuine logic prevailed? Because we have that capacity. Well, these people could never be in that space because they're just lost souls, right? Or that you don't understand how. Right, but neither could you, because you're not creating the space for that to happen anyway by doing the work in your own perspective, which is all you could do to ever create that space in the first place. So you want to not do the only thing that you could do that would actually create space for that to happen, and then simultaneously complain and condemn and judge all the people around you that are not doing what you'll never do. That makes a lot of sense. Even though you know in your own heart you could do it, and you're just procrastinating and avoiding the work to go on this life coach, self-help, I'm going to solve everybody's problems process, when everybody can see good goddamn and well, you still got your own work to do, or you're still in your process, or you got, And that's a lot of times what stops the motivation. People say, get on here and speak and talk about, well, I'm just having a great old time with what God's given me. Because I've had hot potatoes dropped in my lap and had to figure out, what's the next step? What's the next right thing? And maybe sharing the testimony has value in it and whatnot. But there's something about the secret societies, I guess it's a Masonic concept of where it's like, let that energy build up. Don't show all your cards. Don't give away what you're doing. Don't tell them your plan. Don't tell anybody. Not even the closest person to you. Just it's you and God. If you got an idea, if you know something, if you got a burning drive, and every time you try to get going, it's somehow circumvented by your own dysfunction. Maybe the better thing is to not share the true concepts about yourself and to keep that intimate. And I think there is a lot of value in that. It's like if you have a dream, if you have a plan, you don't need to tell anyone. If you know in your heart something you're doing, because if you get on a screen every day and you tell someone, I'm doing this, I'm that, and that, and they see the actions, nothing aligns to it, but your words. And how many fucking people do that? I know this guy, I swear to God, every time I see him, I'm getting this thing together. I'm starting this group. I'm doing this real estate thing. I'm doing this. Will you be a part of this? I don't think I've ever told him no. To me, it's just a laughable concept now because I just agree every time because I know he's never going to do anything. And I'm just never going to be his excuse for why it couldn't happen, that the practice couldn't happen, or, he's going to do a play. He's going to do it, all these different things. I'm always like, yeah, sure, dude, let me know, man. And he never does shit but a slave job. And at some point, I am going to tell him, dude, just stop telling anyone. Your next idea, don't fucking tell a soul. And get to work, dude. And build that thing. Because you're just looking for validation because you know you're not doing anything. And it's all right, man. We've all done it. Everybody does it at a certain level. I love you enough to shine a light on it. And it's ridiculous. Because really what you want more than anything is validation. You don't want the hard work to pursue something and to overcome and be a champion or highly skilled in a certain area, or have the satisfaction of knowing, despite the antagonist, despite the naysayers, you had a vision, you saw it through, you knew deep within your own consciousness that there was a value that you had to pursue. You just want people to see you that way, which means your value is actually misappropriated. You see the value in the validation, not in the actual pursuit in the process of living that way and being that. Time I had to lift weight and drop it certainly won't be the last. Why would I ever go back to that chimp cave? You can only handle so much torture. You got to know when to fold them, know when to walk away, like talking about losing weight. Well, and I would say the most valuable thing to lose weight, in my experience, is to stop saying I'm losing weight, is to stop telling people you're getting in shape, is to stop idolizing some idea of a way you're going to live in a future place, but actually looking at reality now and where you're at, what you're actually doing. And then to very quietly, in your own discipline, as a creature of habit, recognize your cycles and commit between you and God to do more and be more. Because everybody says you got to have accountability, all these type of things. But if you're gluttonous with food, if you're, you just need someone to kick you in the balls all day and make you feel bad about it. No, if you're ready to change and make a shift, in most cases, I understand there's extreme things with like heavy drugs and stuff, but a lot of cases, the change people want is within their grasp. It's just lack of discipline. You're going to tell everybody and make a big deal about your resolution and you got a big plan, and then 1 month later, 2 weeks later, 1 week later, you couldn't even make it a week. Because you didn't want it enough. But I do think one of the big components of it that most people miss because they think it's lying to themselves or they don't want to have the courage. It's not that they don't want to have a courage. That's the wrong way to say that. They don't give themselves permission to stand in what they command and claim it and step into that energy and know it to be. They don't know that part of themselves, that they can know something to be, and that aspect of faith, that you are actually stepping into knowing something that's unseen, is a powerful, powerful aspect of self that most people have a connection to or have a concept of if they'll look at it. And that's a muscle that they can exercise, so to speak. And that is actually faith, and that's powerful. But it's between you and the Most High. You don't need to share it with anybody. The true commitments, the true disciplines, that's kind of the folly, I think, of all these accountability concepts. Because they want you to get into therapy. They want the pastor, the therapist, everybody else to fix you instead of what the Most High has for you. The Most High already has a plan. You're not listening. You don't have faith in the greater plan that's already cause and effect, shaping and carving your reality, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. And then we get caught up in this ego idea that intellectually we know what is best for us or for everyone else. Even though intuitively we know that the only thing that we have to do is be the authentic version of self. That's really all that has to be accomplished, which isn't done through any forced mechanism, any type of self-development, any type of long drawn-out unindoctrination, or, it practically speaking, experientially people will say, but fundamentally it's a flip of a switch. It's just an identity dilemma. And I think that is one of the main components that's a stumbling block for a lot of us in significant change or whatever addictions or ideas. And then there's the other side of that you can just lean into it and say, I claim that. I claim that dysfunction. I enjoy that type of indulgence. I do eat lots of shit. And I'm probably not going to shift and change that here. I know people like that just, they're, but they don't know what's coming. Because health is wealth. And if you haven't had a full breakdown of your system and how your body works, the ego can get bruised real quick. All of a sudden, it's not as smart as it thought it was. When you're debilitated because of your gluttony and your stupidity. And then the question is can that process not only not be you becoming a victim of circumstances or just placating to your own destruction and just doubling down, going into massive obesity and just, a full portrayal of all your lack of willingness to love yourself at any level. Could it be the subtle nudge? I would just say if you've had that revelation, for me, it's more, I'm just grateful. I don't think it's because I'm living self-righteously, Rick, back to your thing, because it's just all a stream of consciousness of all these, your comments. I take them in. I'm just grateful, which makes me better than you, because you have an ego in it. I'm just grateful that I, as a superior perspective, see it as just me being a humble servant of the Most High and being considerate to my experience. I'm not taking on any vanity or ego in my process. I'm not righteous. No, but I love that Rick said that. I want to point back to that too, because how many people will you ask them, hey, are you a good person? And I know you don't do this, so you're like, I don't ask people, are they a good person? Try it sometime, though. Like, are you a good human? Are you a good being? Are you a good spirit? Do you have good intentions? Do you do the right thing? And people will tell you the truth. And most of the time, they'll tell you no. I could never say that about myself. No. Well, not, there's plenty of people that will say, yeah, I think I'm a decent person. But way more will tell you they're not than you would think. And it's been a while since I've done that exercise, but that was my experience. People, and they'll try to do it humbly and like they're being a good person by telling you this and they're doing the right thing, and they are. Thank you for telling me you're not. You have no concept of good about your conduct, your character, who you are, what you stand for, how you live your life, your beingness. And they want to hide behind this idea that they're being overly considerate to true righteousness by saying, I could never hold an ego like that because I'm just humbled before the Lord, right? I'm terrible. I'm wicked in all my ways. And you see verses in the Bible like that. You're just utterly flawed. There's no good in you. God saw all his creation, all the people. There's not good in any of them. Definitely not good in you. And you could be at this place where you'd look at yourself this way. And then you'd claim that to your brother. I mean, and then of course, if he says that's pathetic, he's attacking you, right? He can't just call that what it is. And be like, yeah, man, you're at an all-time low. You're dropping the ball big time, man. What do you want me? I'm supposed to not love you enough to tell you the truth? That's fucking a pathetic mindset. Sorry, but not sorry, but you're sorry. And I'm not. So they don't have the courage to see themselves in a decent light because they're not decent. Or whatever little decency they have, they know in their own heart is so oversaturated by their lack of decency that they can't even see that flicker of light. Or they just want to obfuscate from all of it and say, there is nothing decent, there is nothing indecent, there is nothing objectively okay or not okay. There's nothing. All right, fine, but then you're just a fucking deer. Just go be a bear in the woods because you're not human, right? You don't have empathy. You don't have any consideration to the aspect of self that has a moral compass, that's inherent to being human, or at least it was for all of history. And now all of a sudden I'm supposed to be convinced that you, with your intellectual mind, intellectualized yourself out of morality in a principle-based life. You don't have to have a concept of any of this because you've now chosen, as you wish, but then the cause and effect of that still reinforces the greater truth, which is it's all still in effect whether you like it or not. So you can live in a way where you've convinced yourself, and your identity will hold that space and energy, and then that redefines the initial principle that you can't escape your own demise with lack of discipline to the truth that you know. And you can try to have others define that for you to make it easier for you or make it palatable, but the cup's still not going to pass. You're still going to have the Jesus moment where it's not your will, but the greater will, or, I don't want to drink from this cup, but are you willing to do the right thing? If you have to receive that, or lose it all, or whatever it is, the worst outcome to do what is right. Nobody wants that. Is that the cost? That's the story they want to tell us. If you do what's right, the worst is what you'll receive. The world will reject you and will punish you, torture you, and ultimately destroy you. And the only hope you have is someone else who went through that process was not destroyed. And because they were not destroyed, you can have hope in their lack of destruction that you will also not be destroyed. And to me, there's an obvious truth there and there's an obvious lie. I mean, if someone illuminated a path, because people will say here, you can't change anything, you can't do anything. But if one man's words and concepts are so powerful, they seem to transcend all of the counter ideas' ability to snuff it out or get rid, despite burning books, whatever they did to limit the flow of information, control it. It couldn't not be heard. Because the words were just too powerful. But were the words too powerful, or was it the life behind the words? Because people put so much power in those words. And I got to imagine if you actually saw someone live a life like that, that would be much more powerful than reading a book about it or hearing someone's third-party testimony or 50-second hand testimony. I don't know how many hands in spoken word before it was even written down over decades. But that's beside the point. There's still powerful truths that are held within these ideas. And you could only imagine to see someone live on that level of conviction where they had no allegiance to anything but the truth, and it showed in every action. That is the profound concept, where when you look at everything going on, you say, there is no example of that even in myself, right? Because you know it leads to instantaneous demise. And I think any truth seeker that's actually really looked at it would have to acknowledge that they can't even live the perfect expression, which would be a cop-out to then use that and say your refinement is done too, right? Because there has to be a faith to overcome that at a certain level beyond your own capacity. Otherwise, you are fucked. This good work will stop that's happened in you. So it's the yin and yang again. You know, there's a submission to the mystery, the thing that you can't conceive, and the capacities that don't seem reachable to you. But then there's also the stepping into that place where you give yourself permission to have peace and joy and love and not sweat the small stuff. It's all going to burn anyway. You know, if you think God brought you here to not have fun and not experience joy and happiness, when that's a choice and that's available to you, I mean, imagine you go through the toil of dis-ease years and you have lack of health, and then you get to a place where you can finally breathe, or you can finally just enjoy observing without being in pain. That could be the greatest liberation, exhilaration, opportunity, and you would never take that for granted, maybe for the rest of your life. You know, it's just, I'll cherish every breath, because just to not be in pain and experience it for who knows for how long, because I know I'll experience pain again, you know. Death is coming. But I've seen how grateful I can be for just a shift in the sands, a small shift. And being in poor health is, it's utterly miserable. Has a lot of value from my experience. It's a fucked up thing. It is a perversion. It is Stockholm Syndrome, because if you look at that and you say, well, I wouldn't take it back. You went through some fucking terrible shit, humiliating, miserable, just rock bottom with your health. You're on the death's bed. And it was terrible. And there's not really a lot good you can say about the feeling or the experience from a physical level. But then the gem that you took away from it is so valuable, or the perspective, or the gratitude that the capacity for appreciation that you were able to achieve through that pain. And you see that you're a refined being. You're enhanced. You're more capable of offering solutions and love and empathy, or whatever it is. You're just, less destructive in your own right. Your anger has cooled because where there's appreciation and gratitude, it really does fill the space quite well, and doesn't leave a lot of room and need for destructive energies or things that are just perhaps not necessary in a particular moment, as much as we try to be like dedicated to our anger and our hate. And we want to give ourselves excuses, and this is where I and others are not ready to receive the greater gift, because we do self-destruct. And I continue to look at that and continue to pound myself into being malleable and workable to receive that authentic love, and to just marinate in the gift that the Most High gives me. Because I'm ashamed to bask in the light and of unconditional love. But then I step into it anyway, because that has to be my true testimony. I can't walk in fear and expect others to try to do anything different. And I expose myself at a certain level in all of it, because it should be a confirmation for others that have offered me the same in their, exposing of themselves. But never forget the private contract between you and the Most High, because that's the one that matters, right? It's the unseen allegiance and commitment in your own heart to what you know that no other man can truly know. No other woman can define. No other being. And we want so much validation that the greatest relationship of commitment can go on the back burner. And that one doesn't require, it's not based on a validation. That's not the type of relationship it is. That's the lie of Christianity, is that you have to be validated by God. I mean, if you want to put it in a nutshell, the concept that you need validation by God is utterly absurd. Your supposed creator is putting the accountability on you to be validated by the creator. And you would want to follow that anyway. At some point, logic must prevail. You were given logic for a reason. Even if you're female and you're stuck in your emotions, if you've chose not or have not been able to have the leadership of a man that can help you with that, then you have to have a higher sense of connectedness to true logic. Because you're a goofy broad. No, I'm just kidding. Divine Spark says, just be. Sure, but then again, that's just another cop-out, right? Because it's just a platitude, Divine Spark. You're oversimplifying. How dare you come in here and try to take all my wordy topics of discussion and summarize it into just a couple words, as if you got it all figured out. And you didn't need to say all the shit I just said, because you could have just said, just be. And I could have just came on the screen and said, just be. Saying it as a mantra, just be. You get a choir of people and we just sing, just be. All right, I'm doing it. You inspired me. Just be. Just be. Just be. So pissed that Divine Spark said that. Just be. Just be. I am not satisfied with just be. Why am I not satisfied with just be? This is not sufficient. Just be. The maniacal, insane, slightly off the ledge without a parachute, fully out the window version of self being revealed as it crawls out the unfolding flower of potential. There's a darkness in all of us, and I'm not putting a negative connotation on that from the sense of evil. There's a dark matter womb within all of us. There's a space it's not illuminated by a worldly sun. It's a space of potential, right? And it can be animated. And it's a realm of outside the finite possibility. But some describe it as feminine in nature, right? The dark matter womb, or the womb of creation. And if people talk about these concepts, they're seeing it somewhere, right? Where are they seeing it? Maybe they're saying they see it outside of themselves in black holes, and that physics somehow represents it. But fundamentally, the concept came from something they saw as a field they were connected to, the ether, or the indefinable space that comes through a knowingness. But someone could say this too, that you have a darkness within you, and someone would instantly assume they were saying they were evil, or there was a negative connotation applied to that. But if I walk up to someone, I say, I see your darkness, they're like, wow, man. God damn, they feel exposed. He could see me. Like, yeah, I can see you. I see the same darkness in you that I see in me. You're having two different conversations. One dude's like sweating it hard. He's all fucked up in his head. Man, this dude sees my fucking darkness. And I think that's a decent business, Angela Baby Carson. If you actually canned ether or dark matter, alma mama womb energy, you would be blaspheming the Holy Spirit. So you might have to contend with that by making a storage house and a merchant seller's market out of the Most High. But that's between you and God, so I'm not condemning you. Judge not, ye be judged. However, you might be signing yourself up for eternal burning of fire, gnashing of teeth in hell. So it's just something to, contemplate. But I'm not really sure of all these concepts. I do think it would be funny, though, and I think Jesus would understand, and I would make a plea on your behalf to Jesus and to God Almighty and say, Angela meant well. Her intentions were good. You got to look at the spirit behind the can of ether. She wasn't trying to just monetize. Plus, she gave 10% back to one of her favorite foundations. And she is simultaneously doing a lot of good in the world with sourdough bread. I heard she gave a loaf to the homeless or something. I don't know. But I think that if she sells the dark matter womb, she's creating awareness around a spiritual significant concept that helps beings have knowledge of self in an understanding of concepts and signposts that will point people back to observation of the reality within them. So it's a good deed that should go unpunished to can dark matter womb. And I do think Jesus will understand that. But I could be wrong. So, full disclaimer. Back is out again. Yeah. I think it's the cycle that we're in. There was some huge meteor shower yesterday in the Grand Rising. A lot of cosmic shit happening. Not that any of that's real, but it probably has some. I mean, the cycles have been observed forever, right? It does seem to have an effect on people, the astrology and all this stuff, even if it's placebo or through their own faith. But I've known of people that live and die by that stuff. I'm not really one of those. I just know that a lot of people are having aches and pains and back pain, neck pain, shit like that. And there is kind of that correlation. But it may just be circumstantial or otherwise. I'm trying to speak in the most boring, monotone, unenthusiastic, unmotivated, bored out of my mind, completely lost in the sauce, and unengaging, offensive, it's time for you to go. Show's over. I have a new personality. The many personalities of Dick. Wait, this isn't Dick. You ever get those people, like some of these people in the panels, they say have multiple personalities. I've ran across a few of those. And I don't know if they're actually just playing a bit. But there are people that definitely are convinced they have multiple personalities. I don't know if I've ever met anyone in real life that claimed that. I think I have, but I didn't get to know them. I think that was the red flag where I said, okay, I'm good to go. I've seen enough. Because I'm sure I've had that happen in social groups or whatever where someone's, I have multiple personalities. Yeah, okay. Note to self, never engage again. And in fact, I do know someone actually who does claim to be an alien, or one of his personalities is an alien. And I'm like, all right, you've already discredited yourself. You can't have one of your fucking multiple. You can't have one of your multiple personalities be an alien, dumbass. You've discredited your. It's not a real personality. We don't even know aliens are real. What is it? It's an Arcturian. It's a gray alien. Fuck off. You're lying to me. I can't take you on your word or anything you say. You're just telling me little fucking stories. You don't have multiple personalities. Anyway. I just feel like people could be more loving except in circumstances like that. People need to just call people out on their bullshit and stop beating around the fucking bush. Hold people's feet to the fire and drag them kicking and screaming to the coals of their own demise. There needs to be a fire burning hot. But it's not. They're just getting away with it. And I'm out. I'm like, fuck this. I got better shit to do. I'm going to go build a door or something with my hands. I'm sure you people understand. You were late. Yeah. Basil flower tea. What's that now? Test, test, test. Hold them underwater in the outdoor goddess bath. One told me he wanted to procreate and then used the excuse that some lab coat convinced him he had MPD. You remember that, don't you, Dick? Wasn't long after I sold my house and went to AZ. Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I do remember that. I didn't know that side of the circumstance that he had told you he wanted to procreate. You may have said that or something, but it was a long time ago. But so he actually wanted to create a life, and then once he did, he got cold feet or what? Oh, Jesus Christ. Ay, ay, ay. Talk about unrelatable. But, you know, of course, there's always two sides to every story, right? And I'm saying that for myself, too. And anything, you know, I present, whatever. It's just like, I understand there's other perspectives, other people involved, whatever. Should have stayed there. Oh, well, I'm sure qualified immunity won't make much of a difference. Yeah, I guess I don't understand. I'm slow on the uptake. Anyway, I guess I petered out here. Dick has petered out. I'm thinking I'm going back to 70s bell bottoms and fitted attire because I saw some dude on YouTube and he said that's the new thing. That's the way to go. It's coming back around. It's about to start trending. And I've never worn bell bottoms before. I'm excited to try them on. It's just something to look forward to in my life. Vain and nonsensical. Somewhat comical. Me walking around like an asshole with bell bottoms on. Like I or anybody should give a shit. And like the people are like, man, that guy, he really thinks he's... Look at that fucking dude. He's an asshole. He's wearing bell bottoms. Any dude that wears bell bottoms is a fucking complete asshole. Let's just get that out of the way, right? Because he's trying to draw the attention to himself in the room. He's like, hey, I'm wearing bell bottoms. Nobody does that these days. Look at me. So I'm going to get me some bell bottoms. You mean a multicolored flannel bell bottoms? Ah. Gotcha. And that will be the completion of checking off all the boxes that I needed to in this experience of this reality. I probably will transcend spontaneously combust or just turn to stone or something. You just got to go to the music, Verily. That's where it's at for me anyway. You know, it's just... But not the covers and all this kind of shit. All this packaged stuff that they've given us. Because I know you got the music in you. And I mean, I'm just speaking to myself when I say that. That's my own advice. But I collaborate with a lot of musicians. And it does seem to be a satisfying type of concept that we get into when we play music, right? Is I'm not here... okay, let me put it this way, right? There was a point where I studied some different martial arts, and teachers will typically have this concept where when you get on go to the dojo or you get on the mat, and it's time to do your studies or do your katas or whatever, you may go to a know-nothing state, especially if it's repetition and you've been through these practices, these disciplines over and over again. But once you hit that mat, there's the concept that you leave the world behind, right? You don't bring all your baggage and past failures, ideas of self-lack, or whatever it is, coulda, shoulda. You're only going into this practice with the purest state you're able to hold, which is actually a state of detachment. So it's that dichotomy where you're not actually holding on to anything, right? It's a complete releasing of all need or desire to make something other than what it is, but to actually receive and allow, perhaps you could even say it as a gift at a certain level to be given. And showing up to the arts, the music, visual arts, the martial arts, with this type of methodology, the meditative state, in conjunction with also the discipline and the knowledge of doing the work, where it's like you can achieve that state much easier in a martial art if you've done the kata 1,000 times. If you've done the form 1,000 times, now you have the ability to creatively drift and move about and navigate this terrain within the creative concept of the mind in a fluid state. And it's beautiful. But you're also doing it from the know-nothing place of detachment, where you're not dragging a bunch of concepts to it. And music, to me, is a tremendous opportunity for that, and I think a lot of musicians miss it. So I always try to articulate it into some kind of words in that fashion as a little reminder that, hey, this is, maybe it does stir the ego, maybe it does scratch the ego's need at a certain level, but there is this whole other submission to the creative force where you can just be a cog on the wheel, or you're just showing up as an instrument, a tool. You are the instrument. You are the organ, you know. And that's a great blessing, or maybe more than a blessing, but a be-mooring of abundant opportunity to find a blissful state of true detachment. Because what is the meditation for? What is this whole process that the Buddha is going to sit there by a fucking tree for years to try to find enlightenment, other than to have a detached, blissful experience of sorts, which is so easily attainable, especially in a collective state of musicians where you're tapped into a flow and you're catching a wave. And so it's so available. And then sometimes I think musicians, they're not even quantifying how valuable that is, or considering why they keep going back to the art or the practice, and why years later they're drawn back in, almost like a lost love of sorts from a previous life. And then you just fall back into the intuitive nature to create musically. Or I've seen it definitely with visual artists that paint, where in their older years they get the time and they move into this state of just blissful observation and gratitude. I get to go to a place that's utterly beautiful and sit there and then recreate it on a canvas while I appreciate it. And I'm doing nothing more than observing what is and offering impressions of it and reflections of it. And in this profound moment of wisdom and genius flowing from my mouth of perfection, I grant to thee the divine concept of my own intellect that I have surmised for your benefit, that I give to you altruistically, philanthropically, from my love, the concept of just be. And I ask you to now step authentically into this Talcadian energy of just be, which was just for me, but I'll allow you the space to be with me in a just be scenario for just a moment. Enjoy. Not being sarcastic or condescending or an arrogant prick either, if that's what you thought I was doing. And my hypocrisy is only there to illustrate that I am human and that you can trust that I'm not some multidimensional being of higher prowess or from some other realm where gnosis is flowing more abundantly. All right, I contradicted myself. Okay, I'm getting out of here. Unless there's any last minute questions that need to be answered, I am here to... I'm just like that little machine you put the coins into and you can ask it a question, but I'm a more organic AI version. But that machine could be recreated like, oh, god damn, fuck, man. I can't even say it. You know how many $1 trillion ideas I come up with? And then I just go tell everybody and then don't do them? Because I love that process of just blowing my own wad and tooting my own horn. So absurdly that it just backfires in every way. Oh, I just had the best fucking idea. I mean, I had another one of these the other day, but things are changing so quick. I'll just throw it out there. Someone can run with it. So they used to have the machines. You put the quarter in it. Now with AI, though, right? It's like you could put those machines up. Well, wait, you already have a phone, dumbass, with apps. God, I'm old and stupid, but beautiful. And I mean that in the nicest way. When it's good to see your own shortcomings. There is some stupidity there to even think that I had a good idea. It was a bad idea. Anything to do with AI at this point, I think, is a bad idea. Don't you think? Everybody's trying to figure out a way to integrate and tie into the technology. I'm thinking the opposite's probably the better. Can I say this? Intuitively, I bet you most people know that. Are they listening to that? If you polled the general public, I wonder how many would say intuitively, if you ask them, do you intuitively have a sense that AI is probably not something you should entangle yourself with any more than absolutely necessary for your survival? Be like, yeah, I think, gut instinct probably says that's right. I just wonder if I'm the only one that feels that way. Because, I say it and some people give me shit or whatever. I'm stating the obvious, or is it that? Or they disagree? Because, I do see the benefit. I've talked about that plenty. There's a lot of opportunity. But just unchecked, without a purposeful design behind it, the species on a whole is fucked. And can you even limit the detachment to where it doesn't destroy you when your whole species is being destroyed? Probably not. So without God, we are doomed. There is that truth. Something to consider. Without a greater orchestration to all this that overrides everything that you see and experience in the reality, humanity is completely fucked. So hopefully you could find that space within yourself, because, yeah, it's a pretty desperate picture if you don't have that other perspective. Anyway, peace, love, basket full of kind. Love anybody that needs love. Cheers. And I hope you all have a reject AI at Skynet. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. I mean, can you reject it? Can we? Do we have the capacity to actually reject the technology if we're engaged at the level that we are? Having communication the way that it's transpiring right now, US Ape? I mean, let's just get real. We're knee-deep in talking about pulling ourselves out of the quicksand. I am anyway. You're not talking about that. You guys don't even care to talk about it. I'm better than you guys. At least I bring it up. I'm way better than you guys. Way superior. I feel great. I'm feeling good. Feeling great. Feeling good. We are fucked, says Rick. Says USA. Have a wonderful get fucked day. Go fuck yourself. Nobody's going to do it for you. So you might as well fuck the best and fuck yourself. And I mean that in the nicest way. Good job, Michael. I think you did the right thing. I applaud you in your commitment to watering your garden, and I wouldn't have it any other way. But yeah, we'll catch y'all on another one. And it's going to be a long day. We're just getting started. You are. I've been at it since 5:30 a.m. building a door while your lazy ass was in bed contemplating nothing because you were in a doled out state, justifying sleep as some kind of valuable process where you recharge your batteries or something, where in fact you're actually just being dysfunctional with the valuable time in life you've been given. You should get up earlier and make better use of your time. That's for whoever needed that. If the dart sticks, we know who I'm talking to. If you're not feeling it, you're probably just lying to yourself, Rick. Godspeed, slaves. Be like Rick. Go take a run on the beach. Oh, you don't have a beach near you? You're stuck in a concrete jungle. You got fires all around you, Armageddon, smoke and soot everywhere. You're running in shit piles through like a gangster neighborhood with criminals trying to mow you down and steal your spandex shorts you're running with that you shouldn't be wearing anyway. Oh, well, that's what God said. That's exactly what God said, Verily. I mean, think about man in the garden, right? He's just sitting there looking at gorillas and other semi-human-like marsupials, but they're still animals because that's all there is, right? And he's cranking them out all day. A healthy, testosterone-laden young man Adam was in the garden. You know, what's he going to do? And he's cranking them out to nothing. He's got an Audi with no any. It's just like, I can't believe God did that to man. And just the idea of what that process was like to be alone in the garden with no vagina. I'm sure it was amazing and wonderful. peaceful and serene. Finally, to get some true solitude, because I think Adam probably came from a place of abundant dark matter womb where everything comes from, because it's all feminine energy anyway that creates from that God sense. It's just the man inserts his intention into the feminine, and then out of the womb comes the right. And so hindsight 2020, circling back around the wagons, come full circle. Penny for $1. What's the cost of tea in China? Ain't no dick in this tea, Get you a brand new one. Bargain basement discounts, economy crashing. Don't buy now, everything's inflated. AI says, they say AI, well, you're not going to have any water, but everything's going to be dirt cheap. Yeah, I've heard that shit before, right? That's what they're telling you. Oh, yeah, the deflation's coming, the price of everything's going down, AI, it's just, yeah, you're not going to have a job, dude, but you're going to be able to go to the grocery store and just buy everything with pennies on the dollar because it's just the prices are coming down. Sure, yeah. I'm sure they worked that into the plan with AI. But one thing you'll definitely get is no water. That's the future they got for you now, which is just, it's absurd. So what are we supposed to store water? We need to become very gluttonous with water in this society. But isn't there a device that you can pull water from air? Hello? Is there not fucking technology that you could look up right now and Google and you can pull water from air? No, we gotta drain the whole Columbia. We gotta drain every single river and stream system within our watershed so that people suffer and have to spend $20 for a bottle of water. Wait. We don't have oceans of water. Like, if we're going to destroy the oceans more than we already have, we could just put these things in the ocean. No, we can't do that. We have to use this invasive data mining, surveilling, collating of intel technology to destroy your watershed. Like, the main thing required to sustain life, more than food, more than just about anything, you're made of it in abundance. We're going to capitalize on turning that into some insanely limited resource through doing something that's insanely destructive to humanity. And there's no public outrage. Nobody even gives a shit. Aye. And far be it for anybody of any influence or any actual bandwidth to really bring that discussion to the front burner for society. If you, in any case, tires are deflated. All right, have a good one. Bye.